Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Dear students, hope you are fine and protected at your home. Today I am going to brief you regarding adrenal hypofunction disorders. Lot of disorders are present causing adrenal hypofunction. Some of them are most important and I will brief you regarding the important ones known as the Addison's disease. Few words about the adrenal gland anatomy. The adrenal glands are also known as the suprarenal glands. Suprarenal because they are present above the upper pole of both kidneys. They are paired organs, each weight about 4 grams. They are pyramidal in shape and located on the top of the kidney, one on each side and at the level of the T12 thoracic vertebra. It is enclosed by fibroelastic connective tissue. Diagrammatic representation of the suprarenal or adrenal gland. The right adrenal gland is triangular in shape and the left adrenal gland is not too much as triangular as the right one. It is divided into two portions, cortex and medulla. Each adrenal gland is divided into two main parts, cortex and medulla. The cortex is the outer part of the gland and it is under control of the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. It secretes a variety of steroid hormones which are important for the control of various metabolic processes regarding glucose, lipids and proteins. The inner portion known as medulla. It comprises of the 20% of the gland and it is not under control of ACTH or pituitary hypothalamic axis. It is under direct control of sympathetic nervous system and regulated by catecholamines and renin. And the structures of the both parts are entirely different from each other. The outer portion of the cortex is again arranged into three layers or zones. The outer zone is known as the zona glomerulosa, the middle zone is zona fasciculata and the inner zone is zona reticularis. The zona glomerulosa, it is the thin outermost layer, comprises of only 15% of the cortex. It produces aldosterone. Zona fasciculata, it is the largest portion of the adrenal cortex and it constitutes about 70% portion of the cortex. It secretes lot of hormones, cortisol, cortisone, which are important for the regulation of different metabolic processes. The innermost layer is known as zona reticularis and it is the smallest layer and thinnest layer of the adrenal cortex. This is the diagrammatic representation of the adrenal gland anatomy. It is triangular in shape. The outer portion is the cortex and the inner portion is medulla. Outer portion of the gland is surrounded by the capsule, then cortex and internal portion medulla. Cortex is again subdivided into three layers, zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata and zona reticularis, and the innermost portion of the adrenal gland is medulla. We secrete epinephrine and norepinephrine and under control of renin. Now I will brief regarding different layers of adrenal cortex. The outermost is zona glomerulosa. It produces mineralocorticoids. Major hormone is aldosterone. It is synthesized by the hormone aldosterone synthase which is present in this layer. It is a major hormone that helps in controlling the balance of minerals, mainly sodium and potassium and water in the blood. This is the pictorial demonstration of the aldosterone secretion and mechanism. Under hypovolemia and hypotension or sodium depletion, osmoreceptors are present in the kidney. They sense these changes in the electrolytes in the blood and also the volume. Juxtaglomerular apparatus is present in the kidney and they release renin. This renin acts on the angiotensinogen. Angiotensinogen 1 is formed and angiotensinogen converting enzyme is present in the lungs. They convert this angiotensinogen 1 into the angiotensinogen 2 and this angiotensin 2 in turn acts on the adrenal cortex and release the hormone aldosterone. which in turn regulates the sodium and electrolyte metabolism and also the water balance in the body. The most important and the second layer of adrenal cortex is zona fasciculata. It comprises about 75% of the adrenal cortex. It produces both important hormones glucocorticoids, mainly cortisol and corticosterone. The human adrenal gland produces the 35 to 40 milligram of cortisol acetate per day. Hormone is most important and it is the hormone that play a major role in the glucose metabolism as well as in protein and lipid metabolism. The secretion of these drugs is controlled by hypothalamus pituitary axis via ACTH. The innermost and the smallest and thinnest layer of the adrenal cortex is zona reticularis. It is lying deep to the zona fasciculata and superficial to the adrenal medulla. They produce androgens. Androgens are most important for the production of the sex steroid hormones and other hormones which are important metabolically. Again, representation of the secretion of various adrenal hormones from different adrenal layers. The outermost adrenal cortex layer again divided into three portions. Outermost zona glomerulosa producing hormone aldosterone. As I already mentioned, it acts via kidney and lungs for the production of angiotensin II and release of aldosterone and important for the regulation of electrolytes and water metabolism. The second layer is known as zona glomerulosa, also produce life-saving hormones cortisol and corticosterone. The inner layer of the adrenal cortex is known as the zona reticularis and it produces sex steroids and androgens. The inner portion of adrenal gland is known as the adrenal medulla and it is not under control of ACTH. It is direct control of sympathetic system and adrenal and it excretes epinephrine and norepinephrine. The hormone production by all two parts of the adrenal gland, adrenal cortex and medulla are very important for the metabolic process in the body. Some diseases lead to the decreased production of these hormones, leading to the adrenal insufficiency. This adrenal insufficiency leads to a reduction in the output of adrenal hormones, mainly glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids, and sometimes adrenal androgens. There are two types of adrenal insufficiency, primary insufficiency and secondary insufficiency. In primary insufficiency, the disorder lies in the adrenal gland and there is inability of the adrenal gland to produce enough steroid hormones. While in secondary insufficiency, the defect doesn't lie in the adrenal gland but it lies in the pituitary or hypothalamus. And there is inadequate pituitary or hypothalamus stimulation of the adrenal glands leading to the decreased production of these life-saving and important hormones which are important for the different metabolic processes in the body. There are a lot of causes for this adrenal insufficiency. I will discuss the important and common ones. Glucocorticoid treatment, exogenous intake. It results in the suppression of the production of steroid from the adrenals. Then autoimmune processes, autoimmune adrenalitis. It can be primary or may be part of the other complex disorders known as the autoimmune polyendocrinopathy syndrome. They are of two types, type 1 and type 2, and they result in autoimmune adrenalitis. Tuberculosis is very common in our part of the world, and tuberculosis adrenalitis leads to the adrenal insufficiency. Surgical removal of the adrenal gland, adrenalectomy by bleed, any adenoma, any tumor or mass, and after that adrenal insufficiency results. Secondary tumor deposits can result in this insufficiency, amyloidosis, hemochromatosis, and some infections like histoplasmosis, cytomegalovirus, AIDS, and sometimes adrenal hemorrhage. Among primary hypoaldosteronism, Addison's disease is also very important, and Its pathogenesis is usually autoimmune in nature. There is progressive destruction of entire adrenal cortex, and it is usually autoimmune phenomena. Most likely the result of cytotoxic T lymphocytes, and 50% of the patients have circulating adrenal autoantibodies when measured in circulation. The most common and important silent symptoms of adrenal insufficiency are tiredness, feeling of weakness, generalized lethargy, weakness, anorexia, nausea, feeling of vomiting, hyponatremia, hyperkalemia, hypercalcemia leading to convulsions, dizziness and postural hypotension. There is pigmentation. Pigmentation is present in primary cases, and it is very important sign to differentiate between primary and secondary causes of adrenal insufficiency. Then loss of body hair, hypoglycemia and depression. There is areas of hyperpigmentation at pressure areas like back of the elbow, and at the far sides areas are hyperpigmented in cases of Addison's and adrenal insufficiency. Areas of hyperpigmented areas present at perioral region and inside of the buccal cavity, buccal mucosa, hyperpigmented areas are present, and tongue is also pigmented in these patients. Again, various manifestations and signs of adrenal insufficiency: buccal hyperpigmentation, palmar creases, dark palmar creases, and hyperpigmented areas on the hand. In this hand, various areas of hyperpigmented and hypopigmentations are present. These are known as vitiligo. This is usually due to autoimmune underlying process and autoimmune adrenalitis, and various areas of vitiligo or hypopigmented areas are present on all over the body, mostly in the hands, face and feet. History and physical examination is very suggestive of diagnosis of adrenal insufficiency, but we required lab investigation for confirmation of these findings. The most important tests are plasma or serum cortisol concentration and plasma ACTH measurement. They should be taken at morning, nearly 8 to 9 a.m. and the plasma cortisol concentration, if it is lower than 50 nanomole or 1.8 milligram per deciliter, it is effectively diagnostic for the adrenal insufficiency or hypoadrenalism and adrenal insufficiency. If it is more than 550 nanomole per liter or 18 to 20 milligram per deciliter, it excludes the diagnosis of adrenal insufficiency very accurately. ACTH stimulation test, also known as the short synectin test, is very important, and it is a stimulatory test for adrenal insufficiency. Measurement of plasma ACTH is also important, and it will differentiate between the primary and secondary causes. In primary causes, ACTH will be increased, while in case of the secondary causes, ACTH, because it is secreted from the pituitary, it will be low. Then other important tests are Matera-Pond test, CRH stimulation test, but these tests are usually not required routinely. They are required in special circumstances. Plasma renin and aldosterone levels are important for the assessment of mineralocorticoid axis. For the diagnosis of primary versus secondary adrenal insufficiency, we measure 9 to 8 a.m. serum cortisol and ACTH. In primary insufficiency, serum cortisol will be low, but ACTH will be increased. In secondary insufficiency, ACTH will be definitely low, but ACTH will be decreased because the cause is in pituitary and it is produced in pituitary, and the level of ACTH will be decreased, and they in turn lead to decreased production of the hormones from the adrenal gland due to the decreased tropic action of this hormone. ACTH stimulation test. They are of two types: short synapsin test and the long ACTH stimulation test. The short test or the short synapsin test is mostly used for the diagnosis of adrenal insufficiency. The reagent used is synaptin, therefore this test is known as synaptin test. We take blood samples at 9 am for measurement of cortisol. It is the baseline serum cortisol. Then we inject 250 microgram of the ACTH or short synaptin intramuscular or IV. Then we take blood samples at 60 minutes for the cortisol measurement. Interpreting the result of short synaptin test, two criteria are used mainly: an increase in the baseline cortisol of 7 microgram per deciliter or more. If there is an increase, then it excludes adrenal insufficiency, or the value must rise to 20 microgram per deciliter or more in 30 to 60 minutes. It establishes normal adrenal glucocorticoid function and excludes adrenal insufficiency. In cases of acute emergency, when the patients present in the ER and patients are not established as a case of adrenal insufficiency and only suspected case of adrenal insufficiency, we have to save sample and then treatment should be given, and serum cortisol, electrolytes and other investigations should be carried out in these patients. And if the serum cortisol is abnormal, then order the serum ACTH measurement. If the serum ACTH is high, then the cause is primary, and then we will work up the primary causes. And mostly the pathology is in the adrenal gland, and we will order ultrasound, CT, X-ray and adrenal antibody screening in this patient. While on the other hand, if the serum cortisol is abnormally low and the ACTH is also low, then the cause is secondary one, and we have to investigate pituitary, and pituitary MRI will be required. If there is no evidence of the adrenal insufficiency on the samples we have taken, and the cutoff points are: if the serum cortisol is more than 20 milligram per deciliter, or in nanomoles, if it is more than 550 nanomoles, then the diagnosis of adrenal insufficiency is excluded. Some investigations are also required. They help in determining the underlying disorders and also augment the diagnosis of the adrenal insufficiency. CBC sometimes shows anemia due to the autoimmune process, and autoimmune pernicious anemia may be there. Serum electrolyte shows hypoglycemia and hyperkalemia. Sugar levels are also decreased, and BSR will show. Thyroid stimulated hormone is also decreased in cases of adrenal insufficiency, and the combination of the thyroid hormone insufficiency and adrenal insufficiency is known as Schmidt syndrome. Serum prolactin levels are usually increased. Chest X-ray may be important if the signs and symptoms suggestive of underlying tuberculosis disorder and any other chest infection. Sometimes CT test is advised for the ectopic sources, ectopic malignancies, and they can metastasize in the adrenals and can result in adrenal insufficiency. CT adrenals sometimes for to see the adrenal pathologies like tuberculosis, adrenal carcinoma, secondary infiltrates, hemochromatosis, amyloidosis, which can result in adrenal insufficiency. Management of the adrenal insufficiency depends upon the cause. In cases of the primary adrenal insufficiency, the hormone replacement is lifelong. Lifelong replacement therapy is required. For replacement of the glucocorticoid, we use hydrocortisone, and the dose is 15 to 20 milligram per day, and it is divided in two doses. 2/3 is given in morning and 1/3 is given at evening 2 p.m. If the hydrocortisone is used as a replacement glucocorticoid, then mineralocorticoids are not required because it has itself sufficient mineralocorticoid activity. But if in some cases the signs and symptoms are more severe, then we use 9-alpha fluorocortisone in the dose of 0.05 to zero point 0.1 milligram per deciliter. It is available as the name of Florinef, and we use its tablets or injections as well. In cases of the secondary adrenal insufficiency, hormone replacement may be permanent or temporary. It depends upon the cause. When the secondary adrenocortical insufficiency is due to exogenous causes or exogenous steroid, or there is prolonged suppression of the adrenal pituitary hypothalamic axis, then we have to replace the glucocorticoids for a short time, and when the axis is recovered, these are usually not required. Sometimes we require definite treatment procedures like surgical removal of the pituitary tumor and adrenal tumor, and after that the axis is reassessed and we replace the hormones as well. Different preparations are available for the replacement therapy for glucocorticoid and mineralocorticoid deficiency. When glucocorticoid replacement is desired, different drugs are available: prednisolone and folocortib. If prednisolone is used, the recommended dose is between 2.5 to 7.5 mg per dl. And if the folocortib is required, it should be given in doses of 15 to 20 mg per day. 2/3 of the dose is given in the morning and 1/3 is given in evening, because we have to follow the circadian rhythm of the cortisol and the hormone secretion. Mostly mineralocorticoid replacement is really not required, but when it is required, then 9-alpha fluorocortisone in the doses of 0.05 to 0.1 milligram is given, and it is available by name of Florinef. Some patients present with adrenal crisis. Acute adrenal insufficiency is a medical emergency. It is acute in onset and can be fatal if not promptly recognized and treated. The clinical features are severe hypovolemia, severe tachycardia, hypotension, dehydration, shock, hypoglycemia, and possibly mental confusion and loss of consciousness. The precipitating factors for the adrenal crisis are infections. Mostly meningococcal septicemia can lead to adrenal hemorrhage known as Waterhouse-Friderichsen syndrome, trauma or surgery in patients with incipient adrenal failure, and treated patients with glucocorticoid if the dose is not increased in cases of the stress or dose not taken. Adrenal hemorrhage due to the treatment for different disorders and intake of anticoagulant. Meningococcal septicemia may result in adrenal hemorrhage, and acute adrenal insufficiency can be present in these patients. Acute adrenal crisis requires prompt treatment with adequate resuscitation with normal saline and IV fluid. And if the sugar level is low, then IV glucose in the form of 25% or 50% dextrose water is given, and BSR should be monitored. A different panel of investigations is ordered: treatment of the underlying cause, screening for the infections, and replacement of the steroids with IV hydrocortisone 100 mg. It should be given continuously 4 times daily, and up till the patient regains consciousness and take oral medications. And after the regain of the consciousness, the replacement doses for the steroid should be initiated orally. Patient education is an important aspect of management of adrenal insufficiency. These patients should be followed up properly. They should be educated regarding stress dose, that the doses of the steroid should be increased 2 to 3 times in cases of the severe infections and fever, and if there is vomiting, these medications should be given in form of injectables, because when the oral medications are not tolerated, it results in further augmentation of insufficiency. Patient should increase steroid dose 2 to 3 times. They should wear emergency media-alert bracelets showing the diagnosis and the doses which they are taken. They should have emergency kit of vial of Solocortef. They should learn to self-administration IM steroid injection. Thank you so much, dear students. It was a brief description of the adrenal hyperfunction, and in higher grades you will learn more regarding adrenal infection. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.